Hello and a very warm welcome to this special debate. Go back about 10 years and try and think of the challenge you faced planning a holiday in India. Your choices were fairly extreme. Either you had to be ready to cough up a whopping amount for a 5-star hotel stay, or you had to settle for a fairly low-end budget hotel, which wasn't a pleasant experience. The choices of smart hotels, boutique hotels, classy yet not too expensive hotels were few and far in between. That's changed now, and how dramatically. There are hotels in every large city and in holiday destinations to fit almost any traveler's pocket, and the names you can pick from are the best in the world. Today on this episode, we are going to get away from the hardcore real estate and move to a very closely related industry, hospitality, to sum up the outlook for this industry and get to the bottom of that one big question. Why is every large international hotel chain making a beeline for India, even as every large economic forecasting agency is downgrading India's growth story? My panel today, hardcore specialists who know the industry inside out. I'll start with our Mumbai guest, Sandeep Lada, Executive Director and Leader, Hospitality and Leisure, PwC India. Sandeep, thanks very much for joining us. Ravi Ramu, Managing Partner, Primrose Resorts and Hotels LLP from Bengaluru. Hi Ravi, good to have you with us. My Delhi panel, I'll begin with my right, Kaushik Vardharajan, Managing Director, HVS Global Hospitality Services South Asia. Rajiv Menon, Area Vice President, Indian Subcontinent, Maldives and Australia, Marriott International. Rajiv, good to have you. Dilip Puri, Managing Director, India and Regional, Vice President, South Asia, Star Woods Hotel. So you couldn't have a better panel, so let's get started. But to set the perspective for our viewers, I'm going to look at some figures from the latest HVS report, which is the most credible source for any hospitality data in the country and internationally as well. The report, first of all, rubbishes any gloom-doom predictions for the hotel sector in India. The data, though, does point out to some pressure points. The total expected supply of new rooms, it says, across 13 major cities in the next 5 years, that's up to 2016-17, is going to be 138,227 rooms. The report goes quiet on any demand forecast in the next 5 years, so you have to actually extrapolate from the past trends. And if you look at the year gone by as a yardstick in the environment that we are in, major cities witnessed a 15% increase in supply, that's in 2011 and 12, while demand increased a little less, that's 12%. So, if supply is going to outstrip demand, it's quite evident that the occupancy will decline, and it did, but not by too much, just 1.5%. Even if absolute occupancy did not decline. Look at the average room rents, also known as ARR. Nationwide room rates saw a decline of 3.9% over the previous year. So the first question goes to Kaushik, who is, of course, the person behind this report. Kaushik, yes, the gloom-doom clearly wasn't evident from the numbers at all. But if you look at the trends of occupancy and ARRs, there are lots of pressure points. I'm just wondering how it's this season, which is supposedly the peak season for the hotel industry, October to March, going to peak out. Just pan out, pardon me, this year.
If you don't mind, I'm going to just take a longer perspective and kind of give your viewers an idea of where we were and where we have come. If you go back to 2001, we had about 25,000 rooms in India. We have gone from that number to having about 85,000 rooms today. And as you just saw, it's going to increase to about 135 in the next 5 years. So that equates to about a 10% increase in supply year over year. Mm-hmm. During the same period, demand increased 11% year over year.
So there is a 1% margin there.
There is. And occupancies, if you look at occupancies from 2001 to now where they are, occupancies have actually increased over that period. Going forward, yes, we have seen a slowdown. Even if you look at the 11-12 numbers, yes, supply increased 15%, but demand increased about 12%. So there's a strong correlation between how much supply increases and how much demand increases. So from that perspective, I'm not that worried about the Indian hospitality industry. We are one of the very few markets around the world that saw a double-digit increase in demand last year.
All right. So the top-down approach, top-down numbers look very good on a report, Rajiv, but then you're running hotels, so you would know what the pressure points are. It's not that easy to face new competition, and there's a lot of it which is coming in, isn't it? And for a new hotel, the occupancy rates aren't that robust anymore, even in a growing market.
You know, from Marriott perspective, we would always look at a long-term view on any business, because we are a management company that takes hotels on long-term management agreement. So when we open a hotel, our first and foremost focus is to ramp up the hotel and get to how we measure our performance in that market in what we call as fair share one, which simply means that if you had same number of rooms as everybody else, certain number of customers coming through, you would be getting your fair share. So that's our first and foremost focus, and then we drive towards.
So what would that fair share be?
Fair share is typically one. As I said, you've got to you start from a zero, and you got to get to your fair share in that city as quickly as possible, and you got to do it better than your competitors do. Then it's fair play. From there you are balanced out. You have what I would call it as you are now an stabilized operating hotel. And then you are competing on a day-to-day basis against your competition set. That's where branded hotels and unbranded hotels and how well a business is run clearly starts differentiating. And that's how you manage to the pressure points. So there's no denying in today's environment, there are considerable pressure points across the industry. It varies by market purely because of how much supply has come into the market. However, certain hotels will outperform the others. And as I look at my business, the overall industry for the first 6 months is showing about what we call as a RevPAR decline of about 7%. We are still reasonably positive in +5 numbers. Okay. So for us, that's the differentiating factor that will now start to play out.
Okay, so brand will play out, and of course, how well a hotel is managed will play out. But for a new property which you would look at managing, what would the stable or the time frame be to reach that stable factor that Rajiv just mentioned, a stable state?
So typically, from an industry perspective, you look at about 3 years of full operations to achieve what you'd call stabilization, but it would clearly differ market to market. And often it's about when you actually opened your hotels. So from Starwood's perspective, we were very fortunate that in 2009, 10, and 11, we opened a significant number of hotels. We opened about 14 hotels in India, and particularly with the Westin brand, these hotels were able to ramp up far more quickly. Number one, as Raj said, because of the brand and the distribution and the loyalty that goes with it. But secondly, the supply hadn't yet kicked in. And to go back to your earlier question about the first 6 months versus the next 6 months, I think if you'd asked us this question even a month ago, it would be probably more gloomier to give you an answer because there's both supply side pressure and sluggish demand. However, I think just the last 1 month, seeing the kind of announcements which have come out of the government.
So you've also got taken in.
No, I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why.
I thought it was media which was getting exuberant.
You're right, you're right. But what happens is that we're not saying that these reforms are going to necessarily translate finally into any execution. But you have to understand that there are people waiting internationally, a whole set of investors, a whole set of big organizations that want to come in here. When the notifications happened, and I'm sure, I think maybe even Raj feels this, we've seen the booking pace just in the last 3 weeks improve dramatically because people have to travel to come and talk here either to the government or to their partners or to whatever they want to do. Whether that talk's going to lead to finally an outcome of investments happening is something which might or might not play out in the future. But right now, we have seen travel patterns in the last 3 weeks improve dramatically over what they were in the first 6 months.
India's #1 news app just got even better. Download NDTV's new app. Fully optimized for Retina display. Full screen view. Faster response time. And Sudoku. NDTV's new iPad app. Download now.